it's Lizzie. If you're new to my channel, I have bipolar disorder type 1, and I gave birth earlier this year to a baby girl who is now 5 months old. My last YouTube video was all about my birth story experience and what I did to prevent postpartum psychosis. This video is going to be about how I was able to be not sleep deprived while taking care of an infant. Every day since she was born, I've gotten between 8 to 12 hours of sleep. I did not just have my husband take over all the night shifts. We also did not have any family living in the area who helped a lot with the baby. Those 8 to 12 hours were not consecutive. It was broken up, but because I was getting that amount of sleep, even though it wasn't all in one sleep stretch, I did not go into mania, depression, or psychosis. A big argument I'm gonna share in this video is that long term, if you can establish a breastfeeding relationship, it is a lot easier taking care of a baby, and you will get more sleep if you're able to breastfeed and pump your milk. Most people just expect to be really sleep deprived with an infant, but since my husband and I went into it with she cannot be sleep deprived, we found a way to make it work. This video is going to be the system we came up with. The number one most important thing is that the husband and wife need to sleep in separate rooms until the baby sleeps through the night. We had an extra mattress because we went from a queen size bed to a king size bed around the time. Hi little, it's okay. We had an extra mattress, and instead of getting rid of it, we were just like, we're gonna keep it in this room. And so we slept in separate rooms for several months, and we split up the night shift. When I've shared the sleep in separate rooms thing on social media, some married people get really upset about it, and they're like, it's unhealthy for your marriage. I've even heard people say like it goes against the Bible to sleep in separate rooms. You do not have to have a guest bedroom. We only have a 3-bedroom apartment. My office, my husband's office, our bedroom, we just used an office space. If you don't already have an extra mattress, you could use a couch that turns into a bed, and you could even go on Amazon and buy another mattress for $100 or $200. It is definitely worth it. The next thing to do is split up the night shift. So we always ensured that each of us got a 6-hour straight stretch of sleep every single night. The way we did it is I slept from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. and then took over the night shift. My husband did the night shift until 3 a.m. and then slept until 9 a.m. And then we both also were able to sleep more in naps during the day. Both of us were also able to sleep during our night shift. I found this was way easier for me because I was breastfeeding. When you breastfeed, it releases hormones that make you sleepy. My experience was that because I was breastfeeding and pumping, it was pretty easy to wake up, feed her, and then fall back asleep. So during my 6-hour night shift from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m., I was able to sleep a lot of it. Of course, it's going to be different for everyone of how you're splitting up the night shift, when you're taking naps. Find a system that works for your family. I did not drink any caffeine until my baby started sleeping through the night so that I was able to nap during the day. Caffeine affects everyone a little bit differently, but I know for me, if I have it too close before going to sleep, it's hard to fall asleep. I think that's true for a lot of people. And so because I never had caffeine, it was really easy for me to sleep in shorter periods during the day. All of my American viewers, there is no paid federal maternity or paternity leave. It depends on your company. Some states do have paid parental leave. So of course, this is going to be more difficult in the US, but just find a way to make it work for your schedule. My husband and I have an incredible situation where we both work at colleges. And so we had our baby at the beginning of the summer. So we had a lot of work off during the summer. We were still both working part-time over the summer. He was working on his dissertation, I was doing social media, but we were able to be home when we needed to be home, and we were also able to work from home. If my husband had a job which he had to leave for at like 7 or 8 a.m., what we would have done is I would have gone to bed at like 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. I would have completely changed when I slept based upon our work schedules. There could be a situation out there where the husband is gone at work for 14 hours a day because of a long commute and working overtime. If that's the case, it might not be a good time to have a baby if you have bipolar. If you are trying to have a child in that situation, what you could do is have maybe family members in the area take over a few hours a day so you can sleep, or you could pay a babysitter or nanny, do daycare, just to make sure you have enough sleep. You'll need to invest in a sleep mask. I got mine on Amazon. I'll link it below. It completely cuts out all daylight, so if I'm sleeping during the day and the sun is out, it's really easy to sleep. I was thinking about getting blackout curtains, but it's a lot cheaper to just get an eye mask. The one I have is kind of like, feels like a pillow. It's really cozy. And then the other thing you need is some sort of white noise, which will drown out the baby crying when the other person is doing the night shift and you're trying to sleep. What we did is we got AC units for our apartment that are super loud, or buy some sort of white noise machine so that when you're the one sleeping, you do not hear the baby crying. There are not earplugs that exist that can cancel out a baby's cry. So you're gonna have to do also white noise. I did read a lot of Amazon reviews though, and I'm gonna link below one product. It's kind of like a wax thing that you put inside your ear and like mold to the shape of your ear. And it's supposed to be like the best product available for blocking out noise. So many women who don't even have an underlying mental illness go into postpartum depression or have postpartum anxiety after giving birth, and sleep deprivation is definitely part of it. So I think it's really important for all moms and dads to get enough sleep. Don't force your wife to do 100% of the night wakings if you're the husband with bipolar. I think some people with bipolar, especially if the husband has bipolar, he might say, oh, his wife should do all of the night shift. But I actually think that's a horrible idea. I don't think it's healthy for anyone to be chronically sleep deprived. It's totally possible for the bipolar spouse to do half of the night shift or some of the night shift depending on work hours. I didn't. I have bipolar 1. I was breastfeeding. I was able to split up the night shift, so my husband and I both got enough sleep. A huge benefit of splitting up the night shift though is that my husband figured out how to comfort our baby in his own way from the beginning, because if you're breastfeeding, babies are immediately calmed down most of the time just by sucking on your nipple. And so the husband, his job is a little bit more difficult. He has to figure out exactly how to bounce the baby to help the baby calm down, whereas I can just put my baby on my boob. I don't have to bounce her or rock her that often, although sometimes I do. So it's really cool because individually you both have to figure out on your own how to calm your baby, and I think that is just really helpful for parenthood. So now I'm going to talk about how I did breastfeeding and pumping without being sleep deprived. So my husband fed our baby usually 4 bottles during his night shift, and they each had about 5 ounces of milk in them. I heard so many people tell me it will be impossible for me to maintain a breast milk supply if I sleep 6 hours straight every day. So many people told me you have to be pumping every time your baby is eating. For me, that was not true at all. Breastfeeding has a ton of incredible health benefits for the baby and the mom, but some other benefits of breastfeeding is that it's easier to calm the baby and it's easier for the baby to fall asleep. I get so much work done during the day while taking care of my baby because I nurse her to sleep. She literally just drinks milk and then she falls asleep on me, and we do contact naps. And sometimes I will transfer her to the sling when she's sleepy or when she is asleep and then walk around and get work done. If I'm out for a lot of the day, she'll just fall asleep in her sling. I will breastfeed her in the sling. At night when she's going to sleep, I just lay next to her in bed. She drinks milk, falls asleep, and then after a bit, I transfer her to her bassinet. What is really important though, if you have bipolar, is to accept that you may have to do formula. So you can try breastfeeding, but if you end up consistently not being able to get enough sleep, switch to formula or use some breast milk and some formula. Honestly, even just pumping colostrum at the end of your pregnancy to feed to your baby in the hospital is so incredible. And so there are amazing benefits to breast milk, even if you just breastfeed for 1 week. So it's totally okay to switch to formula. But if you're able to make breastfeeding and pumping work with your sleep schedule, long term, you're going to get more sleep because of how breastfeeding calms the baby, helps the baby sleep, helps you fall back to sleep. I started pumping my milk before I gave birth. So I hand pumped colostrum during the last few weeks of my pregnancy. I put it in the freezer. Then we brought it to the hospital. My psychiatrist recommended putting our baby in the nursery when we were at the hospital, not for the entire time, but just overnight so I could get more sleep. We brought my frozen colostrum to the hospital and they fed our baby the colostrum in a bottle. And because we use bottles from the first night of my baby's life, she has always accepted the bottle and the breast. And I started using my breast pump at the hospital. So the first couple days, it was just pumping colostrum. And then my milk came in, I think on like day 3 or 4 after my baby was born. I've heard so many parents say that their baby refuses to drink from the bottle. But since we did it from day 1, our baby always accepted bottle and breast. You want to buy the ones with the slow nipple for the beginning because the baby's just drinking slower from the beginning. So you need the slower nipple for that time. So to go over my pumping schedule, my last breastfeeding and pump was around 8 p.m. Then I would pump at 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. if my baby woke up before that. Double pump at 9 or 10 a.m. and then around 1 p.m., 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. I would double pump. So my last time breastfeeding and pumping, 8 p.m. So then my husband would roll our baby's bassinet into the room where I was sleeping, and a lot of times she wouldn't wake up at 3 a.m. She would wake up at like 4:30 or 5 or 5:30 or 4. At the beginning, it's different every night. I would set an alarm on my phone for 4 a.m. and if she hadn't woken up by 4 a.m., I would wake up and pump. Prolactin is highest late at night and the early morning. And so because I was doing a 4 a.m. pump, that really helped my supply, even though I would go 6 or 7 hours without breastfeeding or pumping. So then my night shift from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m., I would wake up whenever my baby did and I would breastfeed her. I remember the first couple months, there were like a few weeks where my baby slept from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. like straight. I would sleep at the same time with her and I always made sure to pump both sides before that long stretch of sleep. And if my baby wasn't going back to sleep around 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., then I would wake my husband up and he would take over and then I would sleep in until around 1, 2, 3 p.m. And then immediately when I woke up, I would pump both sides. If my baby wanted to eat then I would pump one side and feed my baby on my other side. And then I would breastfeed my baby whenever I was awake. And what we did with the milk is we put it in the fridge and my husband would use whatever milk we needed for the day. And then we would freeze the rest. If you are going to be doing a ton of pumping from the beginning, I recommend putting the milk directly in the bottles and only freeze the extra milk just because then the baby can get the milk sooner. I had such an oversupply. I was producing 30 ounces more of milk than we needed the first few months. I stopped pumping completely a couple months ago because my baby has been sleeping through the night so well. My husband doesn't need to feed her at night because we're sleeping through the night. But because I had that oversupply for the first few months, I have a ton of milk in our freezer. And anytime if I want to go out somewhere or I'm just tired and don't want to breastfeed our baby, we can just make our baby a bottle with my frozen breast milk. If my husband was feeding our baby a bottle every single day at the same time, I would pump just to make sure I was emptying my breast during that time. But because my husband only feeds our baby a bottle like occasionally, maybe a couple times a week, I found it doesn't affect my supply at all if I don't pump at all. After a month or 6 weeks of breastfeeding, it gets so much easier because at the beginning, babies drink milk so slow and take gaps between each suck of milk. But I found at the 4-week mark, my baby started drinking way faster. And then around 6 weeks, 2 months, my baby's neck control got a lot better. So I didn't have to be like holding my boob and holding her head the entire time. So at the beginning, breastfeeding is very difficult. I was breastfeeding my baby like 6 hours a day from the beginning. And so if someone was only direct breastfeeding, it would be like 8 to 9 hours a day of breastfeeding. So at the beginning, it is very challenging, it's very time consuming, it can be overstimulating. It's important to work with a lactation consultant if your baby is not latching well. But if you stick with it, after a month, it gets way easier. After 6 weeks, way easier. And after 2 months, extremely easy. I'm also gonna link some books below on breastfeeding that I read while I was pregnant. I listened to the audiobooks that really helped a lot and taught me about breastfeeding before I did it, and I think that created a successful breastfeeding relationship. And it's at the point now where I almost think breastfeeding is like the hack for being cozy, because my baby falls asleep while we're just like laying in the bed together, or I'm like lounging on the couch and she's on her pillow. I work while she's eating and while she's sleeping. Because my jobs are mostly work from home, in person sometimes, I pick my own hours at home. And then if you do sideline breastfeeding in bed, that also is more hands-free, although it's a little bit more difficult to work on your computer doing sideline breastfeeding on the bed, although I'm able to do it. I figured out how to do it because I love working, but I also love taking care of my babies, so I found a way to make it work.